this meeting is being recorded. And let's see if this will do. Let me just make sure that we have our videos actually.
And so this one is going to cover, this first one is going to cover Wally and her testing at the Lovelace Clinic. So that's what you're going to hear Wally talking about in this first video. And again, there are going to be 4 separate videos.
So, Wally, going back in time, when you took the Mercury physical and psychological tests, all right, we're going back. What were you led to believe by Dr. Lovelace and also by Jerry Cobb in terms of the reasons for having you and the other women take these tests? And would you have taken these tests if you knew that Dr. Lovelace did not actually have NASA's backing?
Okay, let's only go one question at a time.
Okay.
I was contacted by Jerry Cobb. Do you want to become an astronaut? I said, yes. She says, well, then you get the hold of Dr. Lovelace and ask him if you can be a part of the group. So I said, thank you very much. So I got a hold of Dr. Lovelace, left a message with his secretary. They called back and said, you will receive a notification. And he said, send me some of your information and we'll see about you coming to take the tests in Albuquerque at the Lovelace Foundation. I did that, and then a phone call came a month or so later. And they said, well, I was at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, teaching in the T-33 military people. And phone call came and said, Wally, do you still want to take those tests? I said, sure do. Be here Monday. I said, yes, sir. So I had to get my parents to, I drove from Fort Sill to Taos, had all my stuff. My parents then drove me to Albuquerque, and I was not old enough to go, so they had to sign me in. I was only 20. So I started the tests. I had no idea what I was in for. No idea. I just knew that I was going to do well. The spirit of that Taos Mountain told me, yes, you could do it, and you could do it very well. So with that, and I always had it, that spirit of Taos Mountain in my body, I could do anything they wanted me to do. So they started right out with all kinds of tests on your arms, on your legs, needles. You want me to go through the whole thing?
No, that's fine. That's great, Wally, what you just told me.
Well, I'm going to tell you something funnier.
Okay, tell me something funny.
On the second day, the nurse said, here's 2 bottles, not bottles, but cups. One said urine and one said stool. So the next day I brought the urine in. They said, well, don't you have a stool? I said, I don't know what that means. She said, well, that's when you go to the bathroom. I said, you don't want that, do you? I said, the only stool I ever sat on was when I'm milking the cows in Taos. So that started my funny way of being with the doctors and nurses.
Excellent, excellent. I love that story. Now, as you mentioned, you were being so young at the time and needing your folks' permission in order to take the tests. What did your folks think about you taking the tests?
They were so happy about it that I was going to be good enough to take these tests, because they had no idea what I wanted to do, that I wanted to be an astronaut, because I had been in school. I was at Fort Sill, and we had really not talked about my future. I was always going to be a pilot. But before that, I was always going to be a director of an orchestra, because I grew up with opera. And the folks took me to Santa Fe, and I would see the operas of Santa Fe. I was also invited by people that sang, that are no longer with us, to the opera in New York. So I became very infatuated with opera, and so I would put pots and pans on Mother's dining room table and wooden spoons and forks, and I'd put the opera on, and I would direct and I would do the banging on the pots and pans. Well, when Mother saw that, she burst out in laughing that, "You're trying to play and direct." I said, "Yes." Then I ended up being in the percussion side of the orchestra. When I was at Stevens, I got to play with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. So part of me was opera. In fact, in one of the tests, which was, I think, phase 2, they were trying to figure out where my mind was. And somebody said, after they'd asked me an hour's worth of questions, "We understand you like opera." And I said, "Yes, sir." "Who wrote Nabucco?" I said, "Verdi." Their mouths just dropped open. So,
And
Okay, so that was video number 1, Wally talking about the tests at Loveless. And next we have video number 2. So after the tests, NASA said that, they weren't going to let them take, the Mercury women take any further tests. Wally went back, of course, to her aviation life, but she also had instilled in her the fact that she still wanted to do more testing, and she tried to pursue different kind of tests all on her own at different places. And in the next video, she's going to talk about the tests that she pursued on her own.
doing further physical and psychological tests on your own, and what did you think they might lead to?
you mean after I'd taken the test from Loveless?
Correct.
After I had been to Russia?
No, before.
I wanted to know more. I wanted to get into NASA, and I was getting information from other people. I wanted to take tests that Loveless did not have. So I went to military places, places that oh golly, I can't think of the name of some of the hospitals where they had all kinds of tests. And I would go and I'd say, "I want so and so test, and I want to get into NASA." So one was a centrifuge test, and I taught acrobatics when I was 20 in my Stearman. So I was used to doing 5Gs in the Stearman, doing 360s. So when they put me in, I said, "Give me at least 5Gs. "Oh, we can't do that." I said, "Try it." Half, I think. They couldn't knock me out.
Wow.
I knew to keep the blood and the air in my head. And that's what most people don't realize, the oxygen and the blood.
Okay. In the new book that's out, Wally Funk's Race for Space, author Sue Nelson wrote, quote, "No life quite like hers. She has lived 1,000 lives already." So do you feel like you've lived 1,000 lives with all the amazing things that you've been able to accomplish in your life?
You bet. And I'm going to continue. And somebody asked me the other day in an interview on TV, phone that I have hundreds of, "What is the most exciting thing that you've done in your life?" I can't answer that because I've done so many great things. I don't know, 10, 11, 12, I was driving cars. I was driving a Rolls Royce. I was also a skier going into the Olympics. I was building tree houses. I was building houses with pieces of adobe. How did I know how to do this? Because I watched what other people were doing, and I said, I could do the same thing. I did a lot of multiple things before I was even 15 years old. Well, I went to Stevens by then. But I had the natural ability by the spirit of that Taos Mountain telling me what to do. And
Okay, and next we're going to go to video number 3. And this video, Wally's talking about teaching flying, and that she's still teaching flying. Now, this was recorded when she was 80. She's 82, and she does this teaching every Saturday. So here's Wally talking about flying.
but I have probably, oh gosh, probably 5,000 that I've taught, and because see, I teach acrobatics. I teach things that other instructors don't do.
Right.
Instructors today, it's incredible. They want money. They want the flight time in their logbooks so they can get on with the airlines. So they don't teach. And if a guy doesn't do something well, he'll do something like this. And oh no, this was of the airline. I met one of the captains of the airline, and he said, "Did you remember so-and-so that taught in Santa Monica?" I said, "I sure did." She says, "Well, when I didn't do something right, she really tweaked my ear." I said, "Well, I've never touched any of my students. I have been very gentle with their hands to go on the thing and very gentle onto the throttle. So I have talked gentle. And of course, we had headset on, so I didn't have to talk as loud as I am now." So I've had a great experience of teaching, and I love to teach, and I'm still teaching every Saturday.
Yeah, excellent. That's amazing. Totally amazing.
Why not? I'm going to be flying until I'm 90.
I think
And
you're right.
I'm only a 45.
Well, and I hope you get that space flight really soon. That's what I'm anxious to see. I really want that for you. That's important. Very cool.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, and Wally did get that space flight today, which is kind of cool. The next video talks about Wally applying to become an astronaut at NASA. She did that a few times. Also about her encounters with Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman in space, and also some additional testing that she did in Russia. And she also talks about her friendship with NASA astronaut Eileen Collins, who was the first woman pilot astronaut and first woman commander of Space Shuttle. And also her relation of space with Virgin Galactic. Of course, she beat that out by going today with Blue Origin, which is kind of cool. So maybe she still will be going on Virgin Galactic. We'll see what happens with that.
If you've been born, say, 20, 30 years later, that perhaps you would have made it into space as an astronaut.
Absolutely. Because we would have known more. I would have been just as great physically, mentally, doing the same things. And I've always said I was born too soon. Yes, I wanted to go up and do what Sally Ride and Eileen Collins and all of them did, because they were my friends. They got me. I went to every launch that every girl ever went to.
Excellent. Very
in
nice.
Florida.
So tell me, how many times did you actually apply to become an astronaut with NASA? And did you ever make it to like an interview round? Do you remember any of this?
I applied 4 times to NASA.
Okay.
They knew me there because of being there so many times with Eileen Collins, because I was interviewed there, I was filmed there. And when I said, I want to come and be part of NASA and I want to go up to ISS, they said, Wally, we would love to have you, but you don't have an engineering degree. And I said, Wally Shaw didn't have one either. Well, he was in the military. I said, so what? I've been flying all my life. So at that point, I was living in Dayton, Ohio, and I went to one of the colleges to see about getting an engineering degree. So I walked into the head man, and I said, sir, I'm here because I want to get into NASA. I've done so many tests, and I've got so many thousand hours of flying time. I want to come and get my engineering degree. And he stopped me and he said, you're a girl, go to home ec. That was the first time anybody had ever said something like that to me.
Amazing. You've done all this incredible, diverse aviation things, so many. You've spoken about how your mother.
Hi, folks. So we are just going to let this buffer a little bit because we want to really highlight this tail end portion, which is a little bit longer clip. So Marcy is going to tell us a little bit just about how it really was to interview Wally Funk and welcome her to Cleveland while we let this buffer real quick.
Hello again. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun to interview Wally. Sometimes she got kind of perturbed with me because I would sort of lump a lot of questions together into one, and she wanted it broken down into just like one question at a time. So sometimes that happens, but you know, I sort of wanted to pack as much into one question as I could. But we got along great, and we had a great time that day. In the morning, we got to tour NASA Glenn Research Center, and that was a lot of fun. Wally was so excited to go and meet the folks who work on all the engineering and aviation stuff that they do there at Glenn, and did a tour through lots of different laboratories. She even got to go in a plane that just got decommissioned, I think about a week or so ago, and it's being sent out to the San Diego Aerospace Museum. I happened to see that. And so she actually was inside that plane for a little bit, and we got pictures of her inside that plane. Also got to take her out to lunch before we came back to the museum. And it happened to be that there was a spacewalk going on up on the International Space Station at the time. It was originally supposed to be 2 women doing the first EVA up in space, but didn't work out to be that until another half year or so. But Wally was just so excited that I could pull up the spacewalk on my phone and we could sit there eating lunch, just the 2 of us, and watching the spacewalk going on in space. So that's pretty cool. And now that she's gone into space herself, even cooler. What can I say? I think maybe yes, I'm going to give Sarah the comm now.
One of our favorite phrases here at the office. You have the con. All right, here we go.
You've done all this incredible, diverse aviation things, so many. You've spoken about how your mother had an unfulfilled desire to fly. Do you think that this desire was passed on to you in some way?
Absolutely.
And what do you think your mother would think of all the aviation milestones that you've achieved in your lifetime? What would she think?
She's up there watching me. Everything I do, I talk to her. She knows what I'm doing. She knew that I was in the space program or taking those tests. She knew when I was at Fort Sill. And they were always for me. They said, honey, just do the best you can at what you want to do and keep doing it, because you never get to do that next thing twice. It's always the first time.
Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna take a little different twist here. Can you tell me about the times when you first met with the first woman in space, Valentina Tereshkova, what you talked about, and could you sense the cultural differences with the Russian space program versus NASA's program, and was she aware of the Mercury 13 tests and all that? Let me go back in time
That's
with
too many
that.
questions there in that
Okay.
paragraph. Okay. I got to meet Valentina Tereshkova on my second trip there.
Okay.
And I had made a book of my accomplishments that I gave her a copy of. Okay. Now, everything had to be done with a person that could speak English and Russian. So we just smiled at each other. And she didn't really talk too much about what she did when she went into space. She said I was very successful. I loved being picked to be able to represent Russia, because that was a big thing, Gagarin and she. And we were together for probably an hour, but I didn't get more than probably 2 or 3 minutes of information from her because of the exchanging of the language. And so we sat there nicely while everybody was taking photographs of us.
Could you tell if she was aware of the Mercury 13?
I think I
beforehand?
told her,
Okay.
and then I had pictures for her.
Yeah, to see. Excellent. And I know you've been to Russia several times, and you've done cosmonaut training and all sorts of different things, hand-on glimpses of space flight. I wonder if you can talk about the different things you've done over in Russia to get a feel for space flight.
When I went to Russia, there was only one thing to do, and that was to go to the headquarters where the cosmonauts are being trained. And I was ushered in that big, wonderful door and shown all of their equipment, shown where I would be, the clothes I would have to put on. In fact, the first time, they didn't have a girls' and a boys' place to change clothes. The boys, in the same room, the boys were over there and I was over here. Well, so what? I've seen boys, they've seen girls. That doesn't bother me. I don't know why we're so funny about that. Anyway, I did the same test that the guys did, and I did the centrifuge, and I did it better. I did the high altitude chamber test, and they said that I did it better. And all I could do is tell you what those doctors told me, that I beat the guys.
And were you able to do experience some zero-G parabola testing in airplanes in Russia?
Not in an airplane. No, we didn't fly.
Didn't fly. Okay.
It was all at ground.
On ground level. Okay. Wasn't sure about that. Okay. And I know you're friends with astronaut Eileen Collins,
Absolutely.
and she's the first woman to pilot and command a space shuttle. I wonder if you can talk about how you became friends and talk about seeing Eileen launch into space. And I know she's been a big proponent to advance all the groundwork by the Mercury 13 women, giving the history background. And
Stop.
go ahead.
I knew Eileen Collins because I went to her launch and I met her before she had to go into the building where she was going to be getting her instructions. Since I knew her from the get-go, I was asked if I wanted to take care of one of her children. So that was great. She was pregnant and didn't even know it her first flight, which I thought was rather interesting. Anyway, she and I have been good friends all through, but I have a hard time finding her now because she's speaking around the world. And when we have a chance to chat, it's like 3 or 4 minutes, and that's it, because I would like to tell her I was here.
Sure.
And she would tell me things of what she had to do and what they expected of her and what she expected of herself. And you know what? We had the same thoughts. And she didn't do anything that she couldn't do. She could do it all, but she was well trained. And so she went through 3 times. And I just was so lucky to know her. And what you all need to know is, I didn't know any of the other Mercury 13s other than Jerry Cobb. we were not together taking any of those tests. Jerry was number 1, and I was number 2. We were supposed to have had roommates. Well, my roommate only lasted about 2 hours, and they excused her. She didn't make the first test. So I didn't even know who she was. Somebody wrote a derogatory thing that Wally didn't even know what her name was. No, I didn't. I don't even know what she looked like. I just knew somebody, 2 names on that paper. So I never knew any of the other girls in the Mercury 13. There were 23 that were tested. But how many did we get? 13. There were 120-some guys tested, and how many did we get? 7.
Interesting statistic.
So the guys kind of stuck together. They were all in their 30s. Some of them that didn't, the ones that didn't make it, smoked, drank, fast-living people, and they didn't make it with Lovelace. Now, one nice thing about Lovelace, he was a really gentle, wonderful man. I didn't get to see him as much as I wanted to. I saw the nurses and the doctors. But Lovelace's uncle took care of my father back in, 50s, when Father had TB, and told him to come, or no, it was way before that, to come to Taos, and that's why I was born there. And Lovelace knew the word funk from Taos, New Mexico.
Amazing.
So he cured my father.
Wow. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, it's a small story, isn't it?
Yes, that's great. I love that. And just going forward in time now. So I know you've tried to fly into space with a bunch of different companies, commercial companies. But now the commercial space flight finally appears to be on the near horizon with Virgin Galactic. They just had their second test flight a few months ago, and astronaut trainer Beth Moses was on board. Are you feeling confident that you're going to finally achieve your lifetime dream of flying in space?
I better. It better be this year, because I'm going to go see them next in another month of June, and see Gemma and all the people in England and London, where the headquarters is, and say, they all know I'm ready. I want to go. I don't want to wait 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And there's been a lot of people that have dropped off the list since my name was put on the list, because people came to my house, interviewed me back in 2000, and I paid them to get on this flight. And I had known so many others, like you said, in Mojave, but they didn't build their vehicles as quickly. And Branson did. But Branson's is not pushing forward fast enough to get all these people in. 700 I paid.
That's a lot. And I just want to talk to you about the title of our museum's exhibit on the Mercury 13 is called Mercury Women, Forgotten Link to the Future. And now over 60 women have flown in space. 9 of 20 of NASA's last 2 astronaut classes are all women. And there are 2 women on board the International Space Station right now as we're speaking. Could you have imagined all this, back in the day when Congress and NASA in the 1960s said no women astronauts?
Well, they were all, guys thought differently back then in the 60s. They didn't think girls could do anything. Well, you know what? We can. I proved it when I was a youngster. I can do anything a guy can do. I was called the Taos Kid because I could do anything with machinery, with building, making things. And it's a good thing I didn't meet any of them then. But I thought that was very poor for them to think that, that girls couldn't do it as well as the guys. And so now we have girls that are probably some of them better educated than some of the guys. These girls are doing a great job up there. And I wish I knew more of them, but I knew the old school girls.
I understand. And I just want to say, is there anything else you would like to add?
Oh, golly.
This is just your free time. You can add whatever you'd like.
You'd
That's
have
my
to ask,
questions.
you'd have to ask a question because I'd have to go back.
Anything I forgot that was important to you? that you
No,
wanted to say?
everything was good. We covered a lot of territory, and I hope that this is a thing that you all will want to see. And thank you all for watching.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks, Wally. Appreciate it.
Okay, so that was just a little glimpse back into Wally talking about flying into space, which he of course accomplished today, which was like so exciting. And hopefully everybody got to watch that today in order to participate with it. I'm sure there's going to be a gazillion videos available online for you to watch. And just wanted to see if anybody had any questions at all. We could field some questions. We have time for a little bit of questions and answers if anybody has any.
I do have a question, Marcy.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I was just wondering, is the museum going to put up another quote in the lobby on the ceiling after what happened today that says, "It's dark up here"?
There were a lot of quotes that Wally said after that flight. I think that's a really good idea. And really, our whole Mercury 13 exhibit is going to need updating now, as you might expect, since Wally did make it to space. And that is something that we're going to be working on and wanting to update to make it more contemporary with what happened today. Of course, it was exciting, and nobody knew this was going to happen until a couple weeks ago, including Wally herself. So that is something that we're going to have to update and make it more current with what happened. So it's I kind of call it living history because of what happened in the past and what happened today, making history.
It was a great morning, wasn't it?
Outstanding, in my opinion. Anybody else have some questions? Okay.
I know I'm working on it. All right, we got to unspotlight Marcy here. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. Marcy and I, as I'm sure you can tell, are sitting right next to each other to make this happen today. So thank you so much for taking the time out. We didn't stream this to Facebook, but as soon as I have the recording, I'll get it up there. We had some technical glitches this morning, so luckily we were able to make the live with the Legacy of the Mercury 13 happen. So that was recorded, as well as our April program, actually, that highlights some of the artifacts that we have in the collections here at the International Women's Air and Space Museum, documenting the life and accomplishments of these 13 remarkable women before the Women in Space program, as well as after. So please stay tuned to that. And Marcy alluded to this as well, that we are so excited to have the opportunity to really now not have to say none of these women in the Mercury 13 have gone to space. Wally has taken an amazing legacy with her and continues to break barriers for folks and women, especially who come after her. So please stay tuned if you are interested in supporting our initiative to update a 15-year-old exhibit and make it more interactive and really bring that legacy forward now. So it's been 60 years since Wally, since Bee, since Irene, and all of the other 13 underwent that testing. So please follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search International Women's Air and Space Museum, and please feel free to follow us and see what we have coming up. You can also follow us on Instagram and on Twitter. So that is Women of the Air and Women in the Air. You can also sign up for our e-news, which is a monthly e-blast that we send out. We try not to bog down your email inboxes with information, but we share information from what's happening in space, what's happening in aviation, around the museum, and upcoming events. And also another great way to support is through joining as a member. So you get our quarterly newsletter as well as other membership perks. So it is something that helps us strive to achieve our mission to preserve, educate, and inspire about the contributions of women in all areas of aviation and aerospace. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Like I said, we will get the recording posted here in just a few minutes. And if you have any questions at all, please, you are welcome to also email us or reach out to us and head over to our website at iwasm.org. So thank you so much. We are so excited you joined us and are celebrating Wally Funk and her accomplishments in the past and this morning. So have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.